today's video, we're going to be reacting to the match that nearly killed Ronaldo Nazario. If you don't know who Ronaldo Nazario is, basically, I think like back in the early 2000s, he was probably like one of the best, if not the best footballer that played in footballer, if you call it soccer. Basically, back then, he was like one of the best footballers out there in the whole world. And fortunately though, he had to like end his career due to like him having problems with his knees. Like I think it was like a lot of like knee injuries he had back then. But I'm not gonna waste y'all time. I hope y'all like, comment, and subscribe to the channel, and I'm gonna get right into it.
Ronaldo Nazario is one of the greatest players to have ever kicked a ball. He achieved an incredible lot and established himself as an all-time great at such a young age. At 23, he had already scored over 200 career goals, and till date, he still remains the youngest player to ever win the Ballon d'Or and one of the youngest to ever win the World Cup.
Bro, I feel like my generation right now is like telling me, why in the hell didn't you become a footballer?
You are a failure. You are a failure. You can never make it. Me with my pregnancy, I'm better than you.
Bro. Now, winning the Ballon d'Or at that age, it's actually crazy as hell. That's actually crazy.
In the 90s, he was on top of the world, a lethal striker, efficient dribbler, and a pure entertainer. But one fateful day in 1998, Ronaldo could really have died on the football pitch. I'm sure we're all now familiar with how injuries pretty much ruined the career of what could have been the greatest player ever. He once had an injury which his physiotherapist described as the worst football injury he had ever seen. He said Ronaldo's kneecap practically exploded. This injury was so bad that it kept the Brazilian sidelined for over a year and hugely affected his performances on the pitch forever. But even with how bad all of this sounds, it is still not the worst of it all. Ronaldo lived through a much worse day, and it came on the 12th of July, 1998. That was the day Brazil met France in the World Cup final. You see, prior to that game, Ronaldo was the best player in the world and the best player at that tournament. He had 4 goals and 3 assists to his name on the way to that final, and despite the fact that France were at home, Brazil were always going to be favourites provided they had El Fenomeno on the pitch. They were defending champions and they were ready to actually defend their title against the hosts. But those ambitions were dealt a huge blow when, a little over an hour before kickoff of the final, the team sheet was released and, guess what? Ronaldo's name was nowhere to be found. Huh? What the heck has just happened here? How do you go into the biggest battle of your life without your best soldier? Well, this is where the story truly begins. A Ronaldo-less Brazil starting 11 ahead of the World Cup final was the most shocking thing in football that entire year. People could not believe what they had seen, and many fans did not believe there could even be any reasonable explanation for it. But there was. Ronaldo had come face to face with death just hours before the biggest game of his life, and it was the scariest thing ever. But just minutes before the game, he begged to be added back to the lineup. He insisted he was okay and wanted to play, so he was included, much to the delight of Brazil fans all around the world. Little did they know that they were getting a completely different Ronaldo. Ronaldo was the last player to walk out of the tunnel, and he was received by an uproar of applause from fans in the stadium and those watching from screens all across the world. There was a crowd of 75,000 people in the stadium and a television audience of 1.7 billion. Some were excited to be thoroughly entertained by the best player in the world, while others were scared of the damage he could inflict on their team. But neither got what they wanted. France started dominating from the very beginning. In just the first minute of the game, Guivarch attempted a bicycle kick under pressure from Baiano, but the ball landed on the top side of the Brazilian net. 3 minutes later, the same man got another shot on target from a Zidane pass. But this one was easily handled by Taffarel in the Brazil goal. 6 minutes in, Zidane put in a cross into the box from a free kick. Djorkaeff reached the ball, but his header was wide. Not long after that, Djorkaeff hit a long-range shot, but that also went wide. About 22 minutes into the game was when we got our first real sighting of Ronaldo. He received the ball on the left wing and sent a cross shot into the box. Barthez seemed to fumble it at first, but he was able to quickly get it under control. In the 24th minute, Brazil came close to scoring from a corner kick, but although the shot was on target, it was a pretty routine save from Barthez. The French hammer blow then came in the 27th minute. Emmanuel Petit sent a delicious cross into the box from a corner kick, and Zidane rose highest to send the ball into the back of the Brazil net. 1-0 France. A few minutes later, in an attempt to respond quickly to going down, Brazil sent a long ball forward for Ronaldo. Barthez was out quickly to punch, but in doing that, he collided with Ronaldo, who landed on the floor and seemed not to move for some moments. Hearts were in mouths when that happened, but Ronaldo managed to get up and continue the game after some medical attention. Anyway, France continued to pepper Brazil's...
I'm not gonna lie though, chat. I never really... Why did I say chat? I'm not streaming. I'm not gonna lie, I never realized how many players really rocked the ball head back then. Like, there was like a lot of players really rocked the ball head back then. Oh, hold on.
Continue the game after...
It's like, look at this, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's probably even more. 4, it's like Taram. It's like a lot of people really rocked that ball hairstyle back then.
Medical attention. Anyway, France continued to pepper Brazil's goal. In the closing minutes of the first half, Petit hit the side netting while Givarch found himself one-on-one with the goalkeeper, but Taffarel was able to make a nice save. Brazil thought they would be able to take the 1-0 deficit into the break, but in additional time of the first half, Zidane scored from another France corner and put the hosts 2-0 up. The game was slipping away from Brazil's hands. They hoped their star man would come out in the second half and work a miracle for them, as he always seemed to do, but it was just not Ronaldo's night. In the second half, had a shot from inside the 6-yard box, but despite it being a powerful one, Barthez handled it really well. Brazil continued to knock though, and they were sort of helped by the sending off of France centre-back Marcel Desailly in the 68th minute for a second bookable offence. This forced the France coach to take off centre-forward Yuri Djorkaeff and bring on holding midfielder Patrick Vieira to try and secure their 2-goal lead. With 8 minutes left on the clock, Dugarry, who had come off the bench, had a chance to seal the game for France, but he sent his shot wide off the mark. Meanwhile, Brazil were very nearly given a glimmer of hope in additional time, but Denilson's shot hit the woodwork. Everyone saw that and thought that was it. The game was over. France had won 2-0, but this show had an encore. 3 minutes of stoppage time were added, and in the 3rd minute, Vieira put Emmanuel Petit through and goal, and Petit converted. 3-0. Now it was game over. That was the 1,000th goal in the history of the France national team, and it was the goal that won France their first ever World Cup.
1,000 goals. That's insane.
Obviously, there was a lot of joy in Paris that night. France had just won their first ever World Cup on home soil, so that grabbed the headlines. But there was also a huge question mark over Ronaldo's performance. He was truly a shadow of himself in that game. People even said he basically sleepwalked through the game. This was just not the Ronaldo the world knew. Far from it. The Brazil coach said that throughout the first half he was contemplating whether or not to take off Ronaldo. He further said that the entire team and staff were scared for Ronaldo, and it affected them going into that final. After the game, the man himself said, "We lost the World Cup, but I won another cup. My life." Now that sounds super serious, doesn't it? Well, because it really was. It was more serious than anyone thought. And when we got to find out what actually happened, it all made sense. Ronaldo himself narrated that everything was good until he and his teammates had lunch that afternoon. He went back to the room he shared with Roberto Carlos, and he went to lay down on his bed. He thought he had slept, but he woke up 10 minutes later to see the doctor and concerned players around him. Apparently, he had suffered a seizure. So, the consensus was that there was no way he was going to play in the final. Professionals said that it was nearly impossible for him to perform at an optimal level within 24 hours of his first convulsive fit. But here we were talking about around 3...
Wait, so he had a seizure before the final? Oh, damn. He had a seizure before the final. So, like, so they weren't even, like, guaranteed he was actually gonna play. That's insane.
Within 24 hours of his first convulsive fit, but here we were talking about around 3 hours to the game. There was no way he was going to play, right? Wrong. Ronaldo wasn't listening to all of that. He said he felt okay and well, and he insisted on playing. The starting lineup had already been released without his name on it, but he was stubborn about playing in the final, so he insisted. And honestly, when the best player in the world is telling you he wants to play in the biggest game in football, you just have to listen to him. The team doctor remarked after the game, "Imagine if I had stopped Ronaldo from playing and Brazil lost. At that moment, I'd have to go and live on the North Pole." This was an issue that was bigger than the doctor, bigger than the coach, and bigger than everybody involved. There was a very long and painful inquest into the defeat and all the mysteries around it. Don Riddle, reporting for CNN, wrote, "It's one of the greatest mysteries of our time, not the Loch Ness Monster, Stonehenge, or the lost city of Atlantis. It's the case of the missing striker, not so much a whodunit, more a kind of what the heck happened." It was a huge mystery, and there were a lot of questions asked. Was it stress? Was it epilepsy? Was he drugged? What the heck had actually happened? We never got answers. What we got instead were a lot of conspiracy theories. Some said that the World Cup had been fixed for France to win on home soil, with some people accusing Brazil of selling the match, and some others even went as far as accusing Nike, the brand with whom Ronaldo had an endorsement deal, of forcing the striker to play that game for commercial reasons. The issue was so big that Ronaldo himself had to appear in front of the Brazilian Congress to explain what happened and to pretty much convince them that there was no foul play involved.
I had a conversion after the lunch in the afternoon, and I was unconscious for 3-4 minutes.
Do you know why you had this convulsion, this fit?
No, nobody knows. You know, when you're there, you breathe the competition. Everything is about the competition. You cannot disconnect from the competition. It's a lot of pressure.
It was all really crazy, but the truth still remains that Ronaldo was really brave for playing in that final and even playing the full 90 minutes. He practically put his life on the line to help his team. He said that he didn't want to miss the team's biggest game because of a fear that...
I thought he had the concussion, the seizure, like after the final, especially after,
and
like,
even...
Hold on.
The full 90 minutes. He practically put his life...
I thought it was here who had the seizure, like after this collision. But actually having that before the final is actually crazy. Dang. Imagine he had a seizure and they won. Or like if he had a seizure, like the doctor said, the doc, God. Yeah, that's actually crazy though. That's actually kind of crazy though. He had a seizure for the final. I thought he had a seizure. I thought he had an injury, but like when this happened.
Line to help his team. He said that he didn't want to miss the team's biggest game because of a fear that something would happen to him.
Doctor called me to another room and he explained to me that I had a convulsion, that you not play. And I say, no, it's not possible. I want to play. I will play.
That right there is what you call bravery. Like he said, they lost the World Cup that day, but he won another cup, his life. The World Cup, though, would come back around 4 years later. This time, the reverse was sort of the case. Ronaldo had been absent for a very long time leading up to the 2002 World Cup due to a very nasty injury, and many thought he wouldn't be fit for the tournament. But he came back, took his team to the final, and this time he was fully fit. And you know what a fully fit Ronaldo did in that game? He put 2 goals past Oliver Kahn in the Germany goal to secure the Golden Boot and win Brazil their record 5th World Cup. It was redemption. In 1998, he lost the World Cup, but having gained his life, he decided to go back for the...
That was Ronaldinho, right? Oh yeah, it is. That's Ronaldinho.
In 1998, he lost the World Cup, but having gained his life, he decided to go back for the World Cup 4 years later, and he did exactly that. With that, he established himself as one of the greatest players in World Cup history, having won 2 trophies, a golden ball, a golden boot, and scored the most goals in World Cup history at the time. But right now, where would you rank Ronaldo Nazario in your list of all-time greatest footballers? Would you have him in your top 10, top 5, or even top 3? Tell me in the comments.
I think that's it. Dang. Man, Ronaldo Nazario's injury is just like a whole roller coaster. 1 minute he's a seizure, and then he's like a knee injury, and then it's just a lot. But I hope y'all enjoy this video, and I hope y'all leave a like, leave a comment, and subscribe, and I'm gonna catch y'all later.